to this and the power. Yep, thanks. And the PowerPoint sometime next week, and to those who maybe could not make this call. But hi, everyone. I'm Rosa Maimi. I'm Director of Engagement and Membership here at AGU. I know some of you I can see, and some of you have not met yet. I know that there's some new folks and folks who we've been working with for a while in the section leader space. So what this meeting is the annual customary onboarding meeting for section leaders. We do this every year at the beginning of the year or the first quarter of the year. And sometimes we have folks who've been in the section leader roles for a while and some who are brand new. So some of this may be redundant information. Some of this may be new information. We just want to level set. And really, this is focusing in particular on operational support and resources to help you kind of in the day-to-day of section leader work. But I do want to say as we start out that we recognize these are unusual times. Things are moving rapidly. AGU, we continue to work to determine how we best support the community at this time and longer term. We hear you, we're mobilizing. We need your voices and expertise. And I know if you've gotten the agenda already, council next week, those of you who are going to the council meeting, there'll be some space to do that and talk about these issues. But I didn't want you to think that our heads are buried in the sand or we don't understand kind of what the world is right now. We just still wanted to kind of get you acclimated to the operational pieces and see how we can be supportive. So with that, why don't we look at the agenda for today and then we can introduce ourselves to each other. So we've got the welcome, which we're doing. Section leader journey, I'll give you some background on some work we did interviewing section leaders last year and kind of where we're at with that. Talk a little bit about section operations. Section operations could mean a myriad of things, but we're highlighting a few areas that are pretty prominent for you all, like finance, development. We don't have anyone from the meetings team here, but meeting planning is another big part of it, and you'll see that in some of our resources. We'll talk about tools and resources, but why don't we bring down the slides so we can see each other and say hello. And I would say for the staff who are talking, we will introduce ourselves like I just did as we're talking. So I'm just going to go through kind of the members, the section leaders, and to make it easier, I'm going to call out names as I see the squares on my screen. And Josh has actually put in some prompts in case it's helpful to talk about, introduce yourselves. I always find it interesting to hear how long folks have been members, and we've been doing a lot of these calls this week, and it's interesting how folks don't quite remember, but that's okay when they joined. So let's start with Ingrid.
Hi, I'm Ingrid Daubar, Section Planetary Science, President-elect, so I'm very new to all this council stuff. And how long have I been an AG member? I don't remember, sometime in grad school. So
Sounds good.
thousands, I guess, yeah.
Thanks. Sonia?
Yeah, hello, I'm Sonia Banky. Excuse me. Yes, I am the president of the Atmospheric and Space Electricity section. And first time I was a member was like in 2003 when I was just out of undergrad, but really I think I've been a member since 2008.
Great, thank you. Yeah, David.
David Smith, and I'm the past president of ASE, and I think it's probably 91 was my first time I joined. About the same as Sonia. Well, I was in the middle of grad school then.
Very good. Thank you. Jonathan.
Jonathan Aho Franklin. I'm the incoming president of Near Surface Geophysics. I'm trying to remember. I think it was 1997 when I did my first poster at AGU. I remember going out to California. That was awesome. So I guess 28 years.
Very nice. Suzanne.
Hi, I'm Suzanne Anderson. I'm the president of Earth and Planetary Surface Processes, interloping today. Couldn't yesterday. I have been a member of AGU. I'm not sure exactly when I started, but it was the late 1980s. It makes me feel really old. I was in grad school. And my first meeting probably was 87 or 88.
Yeah. Very nice. Thank you. Wendy.
me get off mute. Hi, I'm Wendy Calvin. I'm president of the Planetary Sciences section. Similar to Jonathan and Suzanne, I think the first AGU fall meeting I attended was circa 1987 and joined when I was in graduate school, and it was the first professional society that I joined.
Very nice. Thanks. Eric.
Hi, Eric Brunane, President-elect for Atmospheric and Space Electricity. And my first meeting was in 2002 when I was an undergraduate.
Very good. Carrie.
Hi, everybody. I'm Carrie Donaldson Hannah. I'm the secretary for the Planetary Sciences section. I think I joined around 2009.
Thanks. Christina.
Hi, I'm Christina Keating. I am president-elect for the Near Surface Geophysics section. And I think I've been a member of AGU since my first year of graduate school, which would have been 2003.
Great. Ivana.
I'm Ivana Kolmasheva. I am sorry for the noise because I am at the airport. So I am the secretary of the Atmospheric and Space Electricity, and I have been active or joining AGU in 2010 when I moved from engineering to physics.
Very good. Sina.
Hey all, I'm Sina Sanian. I'm a secretary of Near Surface Geophysics here. I joined in 2015 when I started my grad school.
Great. Thank you. And Paul.
Hi, folks. I am the immediate past president of the Planetary Sciences section, and I have been a member since 2007, so that's 18 years, which horrified me when I did the maths there a minute ago. I'm also in the middle of managing a review panel for NASA, so I'm going to turn the camera off. I'm here, I'm present, but I'm also trying to read evaluations.
I understand. Thank you for joining us. And thank you all for, I meant to say this earlier. I know that this is a lot of AGU time, right? You guys are doing this today. And then you've got some of you have got the council meeting next week. So overall, thanks for your volunteerism, but especially over the next few days, right? So why don't we take a look at the slides and we'll go back here. Okay, so one of the things I wanted to talk about last year, and first let me apologize because this is the thing where you've got new folks and folks who've been with us for a while. This is going to, for some folks may feel like entering in the middle of a conversation, but this reviews some work that we started last year, and I'm glad to provide to those who need more context information later. And then there's some of you who know about this and were actually involved in some of these section leader journey interviews. We did some surveys last year of section leaders. We interviewed 4 different section groups to really get a sense and see how the staff perception of the section leader journey matched up with the section leaders, and hopefully that this would help us determine kind of get more information about the role. And this is very specific to the section leader role as opposed to council. I mean, I know they mesh, but they're a little different. Council is more on the science side and the governance side. This is more on the operational administrative side, even though, like I said, they're very tied to each other. So based on that kind of the interviews last year, we came up with some assumptions. We call them from two statements. And this is kind of turning into our guiding light, so to speak, at least on the section leader side, as we work with you in terms of how we work through the rest of the year. So what we heard from you is that section leaders want to go from operating in administrative capacities, or at least lessen that load, to making more space to get back to the science. We understand that there's a lot that gets asked of you that's very, I would say, business oriented, administrative, and there is that as part of being a section leader, but we want to try and make that easier so that you can, work in your council space. From functioning in silos to engaging in cross-section collaboration. What we heard is that sections will often work very well and very hard in their section, but want to find ways for cross collaboration, whether that means kind of learning from each other or actually working on projects together. So we want to make some spaces to help do that. We did a little bit of that little by little over the last couple of years, but want to do more. Going from experiencing unclear section leader roles and responsibilities to receiving proper onboarding. Our hope is today is part of the onboarding. Some of you at council next week will get further orientation and onboarding. So this is just the beginning of that. But what we heard in interviewing section leaders last year is kind of the trying to get more definition around what a section leader role is. And it's interesting, some folks told us that coming into being elected, they felt like some knew very well what the section leader role was and not as much the council role, and others vice versa, which I found interesting, but hopefully we can help in clearing that up. Also going from reinventing the wheel to creating mechanisms to share practices within and across sections. And this is kind of tactical, right? There may be some things that sections do well or do that other sections don't. And we want to make sure you're talking to each other and sharing those best practices, whether it's social media or running your websites, to how do you recruit for committee members, that sort of thing. The last one, which is I would say a little more on the macro side, is going from separate delivery of member value to partnering with AGU and the union and sections to drive and reinforce member value together. And what I mean by that is when we were doing these interviews, we found that at the union and staff level, we were doing a lot of the same things sections were doing at the section level. Again, the example I'll use is recruiting volunteers, member volunteers for sections or for larger union work. How can we do that kind of thing together? So why don't we go to the next slide. And then primary opportunities. I mean, this is going to sound like the from to statements, but very high level, better training, resources, and guidance for section leaders. SOPs and standards. What I mean by that is that could be very tactical. Like, are there templates of calendars we can give you, or something like that. Section to section engagement. We talked about that, and then collaborating to deliver member value. So I'm going to stop there, especially for the folks who kind of may have heard some of this conversation last year, or even contributed to the conversation in the interviews. Do these things sound right? I mean, are these the things that you're looking to accomplish? What are we missing? Is this a good framing as we move forward in our work together? Anyone want to jump in?
So Rosa, I don't recall participating in this conversation, but I think I think it makes sense, and I think it hits the high points. And I was just going to ask, this came up actually in our last section leadership meeting, is if there is a way related to cross-section engagement, if there's a way to know who in our membership have other affiliations. So can we say everybody who's primary planetary, if they have secondary in SPA or in Earth surface processes, can we say what are those numbers? I don't need necessarily names, but can we get numbers so we know
Yeah.
our membership, 20% have a secondary membership in this other section. That helps us, I think, know how the section collaborations are. And then also for other sections, some other section is their primary, but how many of those have planetary as their second? So I think those would be good numbers to have. And I don't know who can get at that for us.
We can get that for you now. And I may ask Josh to talk about this, because the other thing we do is that we do provide at the beginning of the year some demographics for you. I think it's mainly based on primary though, right? So I think
Right,
to your
exactly.
point
So
about
we're-
secondary, we can find that out. But for
Yeah.
folks who don't know, some of you may already know this, we do provide on an annual basis some information about demographics. And if you want something in the middle of the year, we can get you something real time. It's just because there are 25 sections and we just, and it changes. We just kind of post them. But Josh, do I have that right, or do you want to talk more to that?
Yeah, no, let me know and I can get those for you. I do know with the honors, the canvassing committee gets a list of all of the members, and I believe that shows secondary affiliations as well. It's just all like the raw data.
Right.
So let me know and I can look into this and we can get you percentages, and just so you
so I
don't have
think
to
that
sift
just,
through everything yourselves.
Yeah, I think we're just interested in which sections we have the strongest overlap with, both if they're primary planetary and secondary in other sections. I can imagine a couple that we have strong collaboration with, but I would like to see the numbers to know whether or not my guess is right,
Yeah, absolutely. Well, yeah, let's get that soon. I shouldn't promise this, but maybe by one of our upcoming monthly section leader calls, so we can maybe share that with everybody. So
Super, thank you.
yeah, that's a good idea. Any other overarching thoughts before we get into kind of some of the nitty-gritty pieces? All right. Well, thanks for looking at that. And we can continue to refine because we'll be talking to each other a lot. Now, our finance folks could not make the call today. They've been in some other calls, but as you can imagine, there's a lot going on. So I will play the role of Nikki and Kevin. But I will mention, since I'm not in finance, I probably would have to take any questions back. So I'm just going to essentially read the slides over, and we'll go from there. And some of you will be familiar with, again, with this, and some of you will not. So I apologize for that. AGU does contribute to your section financially. And also, let me mention, I'm going to go through this and go right into, and this is for Kara, who's here, go right into the development discussion because it's so tied to finance, and then we can kind of get all your questions in. AGU, we have an incentive program. There's also a $50 subsidy based on ticket sales for AGU annual meeting events. And also you all can receive up to $5,000 for funds spent on student activities. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on that because we'll provide some backup information for you because I'm not as familiar, but I will mention for those of you who've kind of experienced this, as of late last year, we've been having conversations with finance in terms of these contributions to the section. There's things about the dollar amount hasn't changed in many years because of, and there's been inflation. There's also been some discussion about whether the incentive program is really working for everyone because only a few people. Yes, the subsidy is primary member. Yeah. So we're looking at that. Whatever would happen would kind of happen for 2026, but I do want you to know that we recognize this isn't always perfectly done. So there's some conversations around how that will evolve. And we probably will reach out to some of you to get your input. We always want to find out from, what section leaders think as we are adjusting any of our resources. Financial reports, I just want to show you what that looks like in case you haven't seen it, but essentially it's a statement of activities, kind of like a P&L, profit and loss document. So why don't we go ahead? So one of the new things we're doing, for those of you who've done this before, as you recall, we have typically provided section leaders with their first financials in the middle of the year. And that usually that has reflected end of year prior year. So in this case, it'll be end of year 2024. Usually that has happened, that practice, because there's a concern that we would share financial information before a full audit of AGU's financials are done. That's done annually, and usually it's finished in the middle of the year or close to it. We know that doesn't give you a whole lot of time to know what your financials are. So we're moving that timing up, and in March, we will be providing you all with unaudited financials. So as long as you all are okay, we'll try it out with the caveat that these figures are provisional, subject to change, and we would of course tell you what the changes are, but at least it gives you an idea. So hopefully that will be more helpful instead of kind of waiting, several more months to get that information. Let's go to the next slide. So this is what you all will be asking, right? How much money do I have? And there's incoming cash around donations and sponsorships that Kara will help talk about in a minute. There's the outgoing cash that you all use, travel grants, awards, early career expenditures, and then the incentives we talked about. I will mention that when you get they are quarterly now, the quarterly financials, most of you are spending your dollars around the annual meeting. So probably only one of those quarterly financials is going to look very active, but doesn't mean you can't use your funds throughout the year for other things, right? But just mentioning that. why don't we take a look at what this looks like? So if you haven't seen it before, this is kind of a bare bones version of what your financials will look like. There's a revenue category, there's an expense category, and then there's net assets. So you will see that my guess is you will have a lot of questions, as has happened in the past, once you get your first set of these, which will be in a few weeks in March. But the finance team and the development team, you'll hear from Kara in a minute, and Josh are always available to answer what I would call very honed in questions. Sometimes the questions mean we'll have to go into some spreadsheets and do a deep dive somewhere else. So it may not be an immediate piece of feedback, but we're available to do those things for you. Why don't we go to the next slide? So this is the timeline. I've already alluded to the March date. We don't have an exact date, but sometime in March, we will get you the unaudited, that's why it says draft, 2024 year-end financials. So sometime in the spring, April, May, we will give you the audited version of that and let you know of any discrepancies. Hopefully they're not a lot, but just, know that they're kind of, one is a draft and one is final. Year to date, June 2025 financials will be available in July. And September year-to-date 2025 financials will be available in October. So you see a note here from Josh, but in case you haven't looked for them in a while or haven't looked at all, the financial reports are stored in the section's executive committee discussion group library. So those aren't public. Those are, basically whoever's on the executive committee has access to that library. If you look there now, you'll see some older financials from 2024 is my guess. And when these are ready, Josh will send you an email and/or a note and connect saying these have been posted, go look at them. And if you have questions, to reach out. And I'm trying to think what else here. Yeah, I think that's it. And we also, if you don't know how to get to that on Connect, I think we actually have a slide somewhere, an old slide with a graphic that actually draws and shows you how to get through Connect and find that library. So I'm going to jump right into development because I feel like these are so tied. And see, Kara, our director of development, will talk to you kind of about the fundraising and donation piece of section operations. So Kara, I turn it over to you.
Thanks, Rosa. Hi, everybody. My name is Kara Green. I am the Director of Development, as Rosa said, here on the fundraising team at AGU. You can see my colleagues listed on the left-hand side of the slide. Tracy Lamondu and myself will be your main points of contacts. If you have any questions after this, as you're getting your financials in April and throughout the year, as you start your fundraising initiatives, please feel free to reach out to either of us or, of course, to Josh or Rosa, and they could direct you to us. So I'm going to go over a couple of different things about partnering with the sections regarding fundraising. The first that I will touch base on is section funds. So as you saw from the quarterly budget report template that Rosa had pulled up, your contributions to your section fund, which is essentially your overall fund, each section has an overall section fund, will be listed on your quarterly budget reports. Some sections have what's called a section designated fund, and that is essentially a sub-fund that rolls into your overall section fund. The example that I'll use is biogeosciences, and many other sections have a diversity, equity, and inclusion committee, and they have a specific fund just for that committee and their purposes. So again, as you get your financial statements and start to look through them, you may see these. And again, if you want to discuss the parameters surrounding any of them or the guidelines, we're happy to do that. So let's talk about soliciting your membership, which is essentially reaching out to your members and asking them to give towards your specific section fund or sub-fund or both. So we have some canned newsletter language that we could share with you. We also have canned social media language, and we're happy to work with you to alter that and, provide the correct language and information or just an outline, and you can really make it in your language for the section. So we could do that. And as you go through the year and you start sending out more communications, typically closer to fall meeting or annual meeting, we're happy to do that as well. And with that, we could also set up specific section links and giving sites. So what that means is if you go to agu.org and click on donate right now, and it will continue to list all of the funds at AGU. And there's quite a bit of them if you've ever seen the list. So we can give you a specific link that just links to your section site. And that's what typically most sections prefer. And that way you could list it on your AGU Connect. You can send it in your newsletter, social media, things like that. And you could share it with your committees as well. And we could also work with these sections and welcome working with the sections on special initiatives. So the example that I'll use is we work with the education section to do a campaign called Honor an Educator. And essentially this is closer to the annual meeting. The education section sends out a call for nominations to their section to nominate an educator that's made an impact on them. And they also ask for gifts, donations during that time to their section fund. So just to give you an idea of the parameters that we can work with, and we're open to ideas as well. And lastly, I did want to touch base on section support sponsorship. So this is working with corporations or organizations outside of AGU to support your section through a gift. We typically see sections using this for programming, so events hosted at annual meeting, as well as providing student and early career travel grants. Again, happy to have conversations if you have corporations in mind that you are thinking of reaching out to, or that some sections have history with past corporations that have traditionally given them a gift annually. And again, we're happy to have conversations surrounding that to ensure that one, the process works well for you, but also works well for the corporation, and that we're getting them all of the tax exempt information that they need as they're making a gift. We do have specific levels and benefits for sponsorships for sections that go up to $5,000 for corporations. And we have 3 specific levels. They're on AGU Connect. If you've seen them in the past, they're very similar. We typically, roll them over year to year, but this allows corporations to have specific benefits for sponsoring specific sections. So again, happy to talk through that. And we ask that if you're thinking about reaching out to a corporation or are working with the corporation, that you just loop us in, and that way we can ensure that the processes and things are all being paid attention to, and that we are honoring the organization and corporation. And I did want to share 2 policies, and I know Josh is dropping the links in the chat, and these are also on AGU Connect. The first is the gift acceptance policy, and this is an organizational policy that outlines the types of gifts that AGU accepts. It also includes information on our endowment policies. And the second one is the organizational support policy. This outlines how AGU works with corporations and the process regarding that, as well as the type of corporations that AGU will accept gifts from. So it's a lot of information I just threw at you, I know. Excuse me. But I'm happy to answer any questions at this time. But likely I expect that questions will arise as you're looking at your financial statements and talking with your committees and talking about fundraising. At that point, again, Tracy or I or both of us are happy to come to your section meetings, committee meetings, or meet, in a different manner to ensure that we're getting you the answers you need. So if there's any questions, I'm happy to take them now.
Anyone have anything for the moment? Oh, go ahead, Eric.
Yeah, this is on the financial statements, and generally they're pretty clear, and the high level categories make sense. What I've discovered in the last couple of years of trying to use those statements is that they're just large enough that we forget as a section what we spent that money on, and then there's these questions that come up, and we don't have the access to the transaction history, and so I certainly appreciate the burden it is to go dig that back out, but at the same time, as a section leader, I'm essentially adopting a policy this year of manually tracking every transaction that we do, which is essentially keeping our own budgets at that point.
Yeah.
And so there's maybe a room for an optimization there.
Yeah, and that's a good point because I think we need to find kind of that happy medium because we're not producing your budget, but we're giving you kind of the financials that AGU knows of on our side. So I think that there's glad to take some input for the finance team in terms of how there can be more transparency around the information. But also there'll probably still be times when you may have a question and it'll end up being a finance person digging into, right, into some spreadsheet or software. So I get it though. Yeah.
Yeah, and Josh and the team have been helpful and responsive to those in the past, but it definitely felt like we were running up against something that was like a bit of a strange request to be making too. So
Okay. Yeah, no, I appreciate that feedback. Let's see how we can do more. And this has come up. So yeah. And Suzanne.
Thanks. This is interesting to listen to. I have thought about sponsorships. It took me a while to think of who might want to be interested in sponsoring our service processes. But I've thought of some companies, and I would like to find the time to work on that. I think I understood you that this could go towards things besides just supporting early career scientists. Could it also, if we were to find a sponsor, could they help support our reception, for instance, during the meeting? Are those kinds of sponsorships allowed?
It depends, is what I'll say. It depends on exactly what they'll be sponsoring and things like that. So if you have, what I recommend is working with us to kind of put a package together, for lack of better words, for the sponsor that you're thinking, once you've cultivated that relationship and they said,
Sure.
send us something, and I'm happy to talk through that process as well. But yes, so it'll kind of depend on exactly what you're looking at getting sponsored and how we could say yes or no, basically.
Yeah, I guess it's sort of one of those things where I'd kind of like to know what the parameters are. But yeah, great.
Yeah.
I will.
Yeah. And yeah, if there's a specific event that you're looking at getting sponsored, we would just need to know exactly what is under that would get sponsored. For example, if it's alcohol, food, things like that, or
Right.
if it's early career members attending an event, those would be two different things that we'd have to approve or not approve. So yeah, I just asked that, just give a little bit of a breakdown of what you're thinking to use the sponsorship funds for, and then we could go from there.
Great, thanks.
Thank you.
Sonia.
Well, sorry, I just thought Suzanne did ask a specific question about a sponsorship, and is one that is a question for me too. So I just thought I'd re-ask it because I think for us it'd be the same as like sponsoring specifically the section reception. And I know that there was a change in how that's funded, but we have a sponsor who is really interested in sponsoring that reception and really just making it better for us. Yeah, we can discuss this at a different time, maybe about, how these events tend to vary from year to year and what influences how prolific the food is and the expensive drinks last year. But so I think I've heard in the past that we're not allowed to have a sponsorship for that reception.
Yeah, and there
specifically,
hasn't,
so.
yeah, and I would need to get underneath the why of that. I don't, but I think typically there hasn't been one. I mean, I think we can bring that up again as a conversation to figure out why, the parameters and that kind of thing. But yeah, we can talk about it.
Yeah, I
staff
agree. And I
level as
think
well.
similar
Yeah.
to what I was telling Suzanne, I think it also depends, and I'm happy to have the conversation if there's specifics okay, great. So yeah, I just asked thanks, Ingrid. So yeah, I think if there's a specific event that you have in mind, likely the reception, I just ask that you reach out to Tracy or myself or Josh, and he could direct you to us. And then we can review the event and look at the sponsorship, because there was some processes in the past. And I will say I've been at AGU less than 2 years, so I was not here for a lot of that. But I know, I'd like to follow up on that and see what the parameters are, to Rosa's point, and see, how we can move forward too.
Wendy.
Yeah, so we get an annual donation from Ball Aerospace, which is now BAE, and Lockheed Martin. And I believe that is shared with other sections.
Yes.
And I just didn't know the process. I think we acknowledge them at our section reception, but I think it would be nice to also do something maybe more to acknowledge their contribution. And I think that happens at the AGU level. I don't think the section's really been involved. So I'm trying to figure out how we can acknowledge them more. And then to get to the point to what we can spend the money on. I think that drink expense at last year's annual meeting was a shell shock for people to have, $15, $20 for a glass of wine or something like that. And so a lot of people just kind of came in, ate the food and left, right? So maybe this is a bigger question for AGU council is can we work to maybe use sponsorship to offset some of that, or at least so I want to acknowledge our sponsors better and maybe earlier in the process, and then also know how it is that what they send us gets to us. And then B, if there's a way to figure out how we take that sponsorship money and use it to benefit the section reception.
Yeah, absolutely. No, that's a great idea. We want you to engage with those that are sponsoring your sections and thank them. We do steward them, of course, at the AGU organizational level, but like you said, to hear from the sections, that's the impact area that they want. So yeah, absolutely. I know we're engaging with BAE and Lockheed currently on their sponsorships for this year, as well as their overall corporate partnership with AGU. So we'll absolutely let the sections know as that progresses, and we anticipate that they're going to continue, at least for AGU 25 for some of that. Not sure exactly what yet as we continue the conversations, but we'll let the sections know. Absolutely. And I think I'll go back and talk about this with Tracy about the best way to share with sections overall, because it seems to be a popular question about exactly if you do get a sponsor, what outlines can we provide and parameters surrounding, how the money can be spent.
Great.
Yeah, thanks, Kara. That'd be really helpful. Yeah. All right. Well, why don't we go on to talking about tools and resources? And again, some of you use these a lot already and are aware, and some may not have awareness around this. And also we want to hear other tools and resources you may need. So Josh, why don't you go ahead?
Hello, everyone. As most of you know, I am Josh McKee. I'm the section support coordinator. I serve as the liaison between the sections and AGU. And I did want to pop into the chat here the section support inbox email address. It's agusectionhelp@agu.org. So if you ever have a question on anything we're going over today or in the future, anything else, feel free to reach out to that email. And I know that there's a lot of contacts here at AGU. And if you're ever confused about who you need to reach out to, you can send an email to this email address. And I cover this email address, but Rosa also has access to it. So we can easily either get you the answer that you're looking for, or point you into the best point of contact for that inquiry. Okay, so this first slide, this is a document that the governance team created that explains the meetings that the council and the section support team hosts. I know there's a lot of meetings and it gets a little confusing. So the governance team put this together to help explain what each meeting's for, who hosts the meetings, their point of contact. If you look down at the bottom, you'll see the section leadership calls, and those are the ones that Rosa and myself host. Those of you attending the council meeting next week, you'll see this document again. So I don't want to get into too much details about this, but Cheryl will be going to much greater depths into this. Okay, and then here are the dates for the monthly section leader support calls. I did want to let you know, following this call, I will be sending out the calendar invites for these. So I wanted to apologize ahead of time for bombarding your inbox with all of those invites. The invites go out to the section leadership team. So that's the president, president-elect, past president, and the secretaries. We use these meetings to give you an opportunity to talk with each other. You can go over best practices, share your ideas, any obstacles that you're having, and also it's an opportunity for AGU to get out any information to all of you. So we work with you to come together with the agenda on these calls. So if you ever have an area that you would want us to cover, feel free, you can send me an email directly or to that email I put in the chat, and we can see about adding that to the agenda. Also, once the agendas have been finalized, we send them out probably about 2 weeks before the call. So if you see a topic that we're going to be covering and you think there's someone else in your section that would benefit from being on the call, you're more than welcome to forward them the invite, or you can let me know their email address and I can invite them to the call. So for example, if we're going to go over student and early career events at annual meeting, that might be one that you want to invite your student and early career committees to. So let me know and I can send those invites out to them. And then this document, for those of you who were in section leadership last year, this might look a little familiar. It has been updated for this year. So this is the AGU section year at a glance, or the milestones. This is a high level look at things that you should be expecting to be working on this year. This is broken up into 4 groups each quarter. And then we have rows for the different topics on things that you'll be working on. So this is just to kind of give you a look into what to expect for the year to come. So the first row is AGU 25. So these are the larger deadlines and things that you'll be having. We don't have the specific dates yet, but we did want to put those on here so you know to expect them, that they're coming. And then the next one is honors. We have, when you submit your UMAP sections and fellows nominations, the honors review committee orientation and the honorary announcements. And Rosa, did you want to step in with this one?
Yeah, I mean, you'll see that there's a deadline date for UMAP and hydrology section awards of today. We are looking at extending that date. So it may not get published today because there's a lot of bells and whistles and some other communication that this may be attached to. But in the meantime, you should also know that we typically, at least and especially in the first round of submitting nominations, if someone comes to us and asks for an extension of a few days, we almost always grant it. Yeah, UMAP is Union Medals, Awards, and Prizes. Look out for more information about a different deadline there.
Thank you. And then the next row is the monthly section leader support calls. So these are the same dates that I shared with the previous slide. And then next up are council. We have 2 confirmed dates for council meetings, one for Q1 and then the other one is for during conference. Q2 and Q3's meetings are still to be determined. As soon as we get those dates, we will update this slide and make sure you have a copy of that. And then the last row are the ongoing things. So these are things that don't have a specific due date, but we wanted to give you an idea of when you should be looking at what. So we have newsletters, review section websites, fundraising, outreach, reviewing your financials, and then also your committee rosters. And then here on this slide, I have a list of resources you have that will help to assist you with outreach to your section affiliated members. I did want to give you a heads up that I will be providing tutorials on these resources that will go into further detail, but I just wanted to quickly mention these. First off, we have the AGU Connect. This is an open networking and collaboration platform. Each section has their own community. And then we have surveys. If you would like to distribute a survey to your affiliated members, feel free to reach out to me. We use Microsoft Forms, so I can create those surveys for you, and then you're able to distribute them in newsletters, post and connect, or any other ways you'd like to. Just when you reach out to me, make sure you have your questions ready and the options for responses as well. Next up are newsletters. Most sections prefer to distribute their newsletters through AGU, and then the distributions go out every Monday. So in order to meet those the Monday deadlines, we need to have your the draft of your newsletter submitted to me the previous Wednesday at 4 p.m. And then once I receive your drafted newsletters, I'll send that to our communications team, and they'll build out your newsletter and send me the final draft, which I'll send back to you to get your final approval. And then the final approval and all edits need to be completed by Fridays at 4 p.m. in order to be distributed that following Monday. And if these dates, the due dates or the deadlines change for any reason, either a holiday or the summer hours, I will post that in the section leader community in AGU Connect. And then we have the section websites. So section leaders and the web editors are free to customize your websites as you see fit. Content is mostly discretionary, but AGU may partner with sections to ensure accuracy and consistency of information. Be sure to list your web editors on your section committee rosters so that I know to give them access to your website. And then I'm gonna put a link in the chat. So this is a link that lists all of the section websites. So you can, if you're not sure what your website is, it will be listed on here. You can check it out. Or if you're interested at looking at other sections websites to get some ideas for your own, feel free to go through those. And then the last resource I have here are webinars. AGU uses two different platforms for webinars. It's GoToWebinars and Zoom. You all are able to host your events through those platforms. I just want to let you know, Zoom is much more popular with the sections. It's a lot easier to use. However, GoToWebinars is a bit more secure. So if you'd like to host one of your webinars on these platforms, let me know. We do ask that you reach out about a month in advance, and then I will send you the intake form that you'll need to fill out to get back to me, and then I'll input everything into the platform to get those ready for you. And we ask for a month in advance because sometimes we'll need to make sure there's someone on staff that's available to host or to be on the call to help with logistics. And also, we want to make sure we're not planning too many webinars at once, because I believe these platforms can only host 2 during the same time. And then the last slide I have here are the section support updates. First off are the section committee rosters, which I mentioned earlier. These are documents where the sections record their members that have been selected for their committee positions and their term dates. These are maintained by the section leadership. However, AGU uses these rosters to update our records with. Your completed rosters are due on the 14th, and I originally sent out our communications on these at the beginning of the year, and that included the link to your specific section's roster. If you no longer have that email or you can't find your roster or the link, let me know and I can resend that to you. And then I also have on here the how-to video tutorials, which I briefly mentioned. So here on the right is a list of some of the topics I put together that I'll make tutorials on. So there's navigating the website and updating your Connect sites, creating newsletters, hosting section webinars, surveys, and checking your section financials. If there's any other topics that you'd like me to create a tutorial for, please reach out and let me know, and I'll start working on that. And then again, at the bottom of the screen here, I have our section support inbox listed. And if you have any questions throughout your term here in section leadership, please let us know, and we'll get a response to you as soon as we can. So the tutorials, I have not created those yet, but when I do, I will probably be listing those in Connect. And if possible, I'll be posting links on the section website as well. But I'll be sending out emails and probably posting in Connect as well when those are finished. And then if there's any questions.
Why don't we, I think those were the last of the slides. So why don't we take those down and again, I would harken back to the earlier talking about the monthly section leader calls. We really do pull those together the agendas for those based on your input, what you want to hear, either from staff or again, making space for sections to share information with other sections about what they do, how they do it, asking each other questions, that sort of thing. And sometimes we may reach out to you, but just from the meetings that we've had this week, we probably already have an agenda set for our March meeting. We'll have some feedback on social media guidance, also some guidance around probably around websites. And I would ask you to take a look at your websites because we've been doing some reviews and there's some websites that have some really old information on it. So make sure you're engaging with your web editor to really do a thorough review of what you have out there. And we may speak to that in one of our upcoming meetings. The other topic that has come up, especially being new in the year or early in the year, is getting some feedback from sections about how they're structured. You know, like, for example, everyone will probably have some sort of student early career presence, whether it's a committee or just a group of folks, but you know, sections each do it differently. So we may be asking some sections who do have, you know, kind of more defined examples of how they structure to share that again as sharing out among sections. So those are some of the early agenda items that we've heard just from these calls this week. But that is all to say this is really meant to be your meeting and for you all to kind of construct these with us. So I'm going to stop there. We've got about a little under 10 minutes left. Any questions or thoughts that you all have at this point? Sonia?
Yeah, I just wanted to ask a question going back to financials. Just over the years, I've had some mild confusion about the subsidy, the $50 subsidy. Like, where does it, can you just explain that to me?
I think I'm going to ask a financials person to come online next time, but maybe Josh can bring something to that. But the reason I'm also hesitating is that we've had some changes recently that I think need to be more fleshed out than they are in the slides here. But Josh, if you wanted to add anything to it, but it sounds like this is something where we need a fuller conversation. Yeah.
In the past, the subsidy was to offset costs for sections for their receptions. So that was based off of ticket sales. So you were sections were receiving $50 per ticket that were sold for those receptions.
Right, but since we don't do that anymore, that's where I'm confused.
Yeah, that's
Okay.
right. So we have to
You can give us
update
the
that
money.
information. Yeah, I'm realizing that the information is outdated. Yes.
Okay,
Yeah,
thanks.
no,
Yeah,
sorry. At a very basic level, yes, we need to change that.
Cool. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah. So we'll probably refine that conversation for an upcoming meeting, we realize, yeah. All right. Anything else, anyone?
I guess, can I follow on that?
Sure.
Because I think I have some of the same confusion that Sonia has had, and it sounds like I'm really glad you're going to give us the unaudited financials earlier this year to give us some sense of where we are. But will this guidance on this $50 thing, will that come in time for our planning for AGU 25? Because it seems like we have to make decisions on that fairly
Pretty
early.
early. I'm glad you mentioned that because that was going to be one of my things of, you know, you saw that snapshot of, I mean, that's only like a really of all the things you all do, that's just some of the things. But that is one of the early days, right? And some of you will remember that. It seems like, oh my gosh, why am I planning section events for an annual meeting that's, you know, 9 months away? But we do start that early. You know, part of that is So we will have more guidance around that, but part of that is for meeting planning purposes. Part of that is to get estimates on how something will cost. I'll give you an example, and Josh can speak to this as well. We know that AV has been really expensive, but we need to find out very early on how many people are requesting AV, because then the meetings team early on can go negotiate that if there's 12 of 25 sections who need AV versus 3, it's a different pricing structure, right? So that's why there are a lot of different things that kind of happen early that may seem really early in the process, but those are some of the things that the meetings team is considering. So that's why that happens.
Thank you for bringing up the AV.
Yeah.
And because part of the decision about whether you want it or not is
Right.
that cost.
Exactly. Yeah. I get it. And it's a little bit of I hate to say chicken and egg, but it's like, if a lot of people want it, there may be a better negotiated rate, but if people don't want to get it because it's too expensive, right? So yes. So we'll try and work with the meetings team best we can to get that information for you. But yeah, there's always a diciness in it, right? So Ingrid, I see your hand up.
Hi, yeah, thanks. I have two questions. One
Yeah.
is, Josh, you mentioned, you said most sections choose to send out their newsletters through AGU. And I was wondering, what's the alternative? Is it to send it out independently, or?
Some sections just post their newsletter in their Connect community, and other sections have been keeping their own spreadsheet of contact information. Since we're not, due to our policy, we're not able to share that with sections. And they'll send out their own through those emails.
That's really into my second question, which was, I was poking around in the AGU Connect, the documents that are there. I didn't realize those are there, so that's super useful. And there is a canvassing spreadsheet of our membership, but it doesn't have contact info. So why is it that you can't share contact info, and how do we contact our members?
Part of our policy is we're not able to share members' contact information, but I know Hannah, who manages the canvassing process, she has more information on that. So I don't know if Rosa, if you can speak onto that, or if I can ask Hannah to reach out.
Why don't we follow up? But a couple of things specific to canvassing, why don't you follow up? But yeah, we do have a privacy policy. So part of the piece with Connect and also the newsletters. So two different things. I did want to mention with the newsletters, if a section does it independently, you're kind of basing it on whatever list you might have personally. I hate to say it that way. What we do with the newsletters that are published through AGU is that it's not just a posting, it's an email that goes through our system called Marketo and uses all of the contact information that we have in our CRM. So that probably gets to more people than you might have if you put it and hope that people encounter it by going on a website. You know what I'm saying? Or now you may have social media and that may work, but I'm just mentioning that the most direct way to get at AGU's list for your newsletter is doing it through that process because of it going through the CRM net forum is what it's called, right? So, and as far as how do you contact your members? It's really through Connect. And, there is a Connect community for each section. Now, I will say that that's difficult because not a lot of people necessarily engage with Connect or like the system. So there's not an immediate fix, but I will say that we are in early days of conversations in terms of improving the online engagement and whether we use the same platform, which is Higher Logic right now, that type of thing. That doesn't give you an immediate fix, but the reason I say that is as we keep talking about Connect, Josh and I and others are kind of collecting kind of like, well, why doesn't this work and why can't I do that? So some requirements are kind of emerging from these conversations, right? But this
Okay,
may,
great. Yeah,
yeah,
I'm glad to hear you're having a conversation about that because I think our membership is not too engaged with Connect. So
yeah, you're right.
yeah.
I agree. I
And
agree.
and part of that canvassing spreadsheet, is it possible to get an updated version of that? Because it looks like it's about 5 or 6 years old, and it has the secondary membership affiliations, which is super useful for that question Wendy had.
Yeah, and I think those are sent out annually, but I'm not remembering, Josh, the way in
Yeah.
which those are sent or if they're posted or what. So we may
So
need to look
the
into that.
the canvassing spreadsheets in Connect might be older ones, because I do know Hannah sends out links for the current canvassing committees or the current members.
Year.
So
Yeah.
I'll have her reach out to you regarding that as well.
Great, thank you.
Yeah. And I know we're at time, but we can hang out here a little bit. Any other questions or thoughts? All right, we appreciate your time. We appreciate your time with AGU and know that you have a lot of other things that you work on and your personal lives and all the turmoil that's going on for all of us. So thank you so much, and let us know how we can help and keep taking in information to help make improvements. So we'll see you later.
Thank you, Josh.
Thank you.